Good evening. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please? With us this evening, we have Pastor Bill Fry from the Thrive Worship Center. If you'd lead us in prayer, please.
Yes. Let's bow our heads for a moment and quiet our hearts. Our most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, I come before Thee this evening on behalf of this honorable City Council. And today we come before Thee not wanting anything except that Thou would know that we desire to give Thee thanks for the opportunity to serve Vienna, West Virginia. Father God, we ask Thee that Your blessing and covering, which has been over this city since 1935, we ask that Thou would continue to bless and protect Vienna, West Virginia. And God, as for each of us, we ask that Thou place Your hand upon our souls and bodies and bless and protect us each individually. And we ask that Thou would give us wisdom, patience, and courage as decisions are made for this city, which Thou hast blessed for so many years. And we ask that Thou guide our decisions with Your providential purposes in mind. And we ask that Thou make us kind in heart, understanding toward the needs of others. We ask that Your Holy Spirit makes us creative and visionary. And we ask all these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Recorder Eagle.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I forgot to get the list.
You're first. It gets downhill from there. Yep, there's Craig, yep.
This evening, we have one person that has signed up to speak, Henry Sasson.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenmont Hills Drive in Vienna. In the mail, I received a flyer that came for what do you guys want to do for vision for what's happening down on the bottom end of Mansville. I wasn't looking for the bottom part or the top part, but just to share a couple comments real quick. Going through when you go to the beach, there's a place that when we're in the Outer Banks, it's called Timbuktu. And it's kind of neat, and it's set up on stilts. You got parking underneath. Why? Because of flooding. And then you got your shops and you got walk-around area. So if anyone's looking to do any type of development, maybe that's something to consider and looking where you have an area that is up to prevent anything from flooding out. And if it does, the only thing that gets damaged or waterlogged is the parking lot. And for the cars that park underneath, but the shops or whatever you could have could be up on top and you're good to go. That was number one. Number two is, as a community, whether it's Vienna, Parkersburg, Williamstown, Marietta, any place around locally, one of the things that we lack, and that is a swimming facility. Yes, we have the Y and we have the Boys and Girls Club, but things are falling apart and they're old. As a parent of two kids that swim at PHS, and they did summer swim, it's a neat sport, and there's a lot of people that get involved with it. And the camaraderie with the parents, you start talking to them, it's not like going to a basketball game or a football game. Everybody cheers for everyone's kid. So you start talking to them and say, hey, why is it that you live where you live? Well, we live here because it was in Huntington, or we're living in Charleston, or we're living in Morgantown, or even up in Brooke County. Why? Because we got a pool. you don't have a pool down there. Hey, yeah, we do. It's Boys and Girls Club or the Y. It's still not the same. Now, I give my hats off to the Y and to the Boys and Girls Club for doing what they can do with the facilities that they have. So one of the things that maybe we ought to look at and go into the future is doing something like a complex where you get with the hospital, you get with Williamstown, Parkersburg, and it's a county or community building. And each school or city gets a section of the wall. So if it's going to be the, Marietta swim team, you got a wall. Parkersburg swim team, you got a wall. Parkersburg South swim team, you got a wall. So it's a community facility. And the way they have Brooke County set up is the community can use it. It's there also for rehabilitation and stuff like that. So it's a neat type of operation. So going through at the Mansville, whether it's the upper or lower, possibly do something like that as well. And again, you can do it up on stilts with a frame parking underneath. So just something to think about is the future. The city's looking for future development, what it wants to do, and attracting certain kind of people into the community. Because there are a lot of people that don't come here from talking to them, whether I'm in Morgantown talking or Huntington or Charleston or in Brooke County. Why? Because they're in that type of activity, and they said this place doesn't have it, or the facilities are inadequate. So just a heads up. Thanks.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for February the 11th, 2021. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the council meeting held on February the 4th, 2021 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Report of the treasurer, Councilman Leach.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I want to step up here just for a second.
Jim, would you do me a favor and test that mic? I'm not sure that we got Henry. There we go, okay.
It's there. All right, just take an extra minute tonight on the treasurer's report. We've had some discussions in recent council meetings, and tonight's report actually has a couple of good examples of what we've been discussing with respect to this reconciliation of funds dated February 8, 2021, which of course we understand is a snapshot as of that date. But two items when I looked at this and getting ready for tonight's meeting, like for example, on our general fund, we have a net increase of $1.14 million. Obviously, that's a substantial number. So that's something that makes you look at that and you say, what's up with that? We've got, of course, at the bottom, and I think in response to some requests, the CARES Act total appears at the bottom. We know those funds have already been deposited. And so when you see a number like this, you say, okay, what is this about? And this is ad valorem and B&O tax. And then the other, for example, we've got under the sewer fund, we've got a $40,000 deduction, and I didn't know what that was, and I just asked Amy, and I said, because I didn't remember anything in budget and finance on any kind of a capital expenditure, and that's our payment to the city of Parkersburg for the transfer of sewage to the wastewater treatment plant there. So with respect to the reconciliation of funds for City of Vienna for February 2021, I reviewed the accounts, they appear in order, and the city is financially solvent, and this report does give you, and so for example, when you look at this, if you see a number that just is different than what you see from report to report, then also I think you've seen in the Dropbox that in response to Kim's request and some others, the short budget form for expenses and revenues are in there. And then Kim requests a little bit more information. I think Amy sent that back to her. So this is kind of the snapshot. And we've also asked Russ, and he's made some recommendations of some line items we might add to the report to make sure that it's complete. Otherwise, this is a working, living document, and I think it's helpful. And when you look at it, it can key you into if there's any area of inquiry. Again, you can send me an email. Amy's always available to answer any question, and she typically knows it off the top of her head. So I just wanted to point out a couple of numbers tonight that jumped out at me, and I thought I would share how I review this report and kind of the questions I ask depending on anything that appears a little different than what you typically see. So that's my treasurer's report, Mayor.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Because I brought this up the last time. Can you hear me?
I'm
So-
gonna sit down, but-
Okay. So I understand the reconciliation of funds. I follow it, have for a long time. And the last reconciliation of funds, we had a negative $314,000. And so I asked about that, and you didn't know, and that was fine. And I followed up with Amy, and she gave me a couple different reasons why that could be. Because I look at things, like you say, that are trending, you know, where does this come from? And, you know, anyway, so she wasn't able to tell me, so I didn't know. And so when you have this net change of $114,000, and you said it's, I think you said it, ad valorem and B&O tax, it was actually $911,000 of that is the 1% sales tax. Okay, so I reached out to Amy, and she did give me a detailed version of the short budget form. Excellent document. Very, very, very helpful, because we can see where we are coming in with our revenues, which this doesn't really tell you anything. Net changes doesn't really tell you anything, because you have revenues and expenditures, and net changes is where you're at. So when I got that short budget detailed, I mean, that was just the key to the kingdom. If we can just do that for these other funds, that's great. Problem solved. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. We have no unfinished business this evening. We'll move right into new business. We're going to do budget presentations again this evening. So first up this evening will be Chief Scholl.
Good evening. Everybody hear me okay? I'm just going to go over the high spots of the budget. Only the line items that'll be changed. Everything else will be staying the same as what we've had in the past. First line 19 is left blank on there because the finance department will fill that in. That's for the truck vehicle payments. Then line 26, the insurance and bonds. I talked to Amy today, and she said that line will stay the same at 58, but that's projected also by the finance department. Then we get down to line 45, our uniforms. That's in the past where we have bought all of our turnout gear, our firefighting gear out of. And we purchased new gear for everybody last year, so we're up to snuff on that. The only thing firefighting gear wise we would need to order is if we had a new member come in, that something we had from the older stuff didn't fit and we had to buy new. Plus it takes care of all of our other Class A uniforms or Class B uniforms and items like that. So I dropped that down, reduced it $10,000 to from 25 to 15,000. Next we go to line 57, capital outlay of buildings. In this year's budget, I had 28,000 in there to put a new fire alarm, CO alarm in the main fire station building. The one we have is not operable. Due to the timing and current revenues, things like that, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna be able to get that done this year. I would like to carry that over into next year's budget, but I talked to the supplier that would be doing that, and he said just to cover everything, it would need to add $2,000 to that to guarantee that that would cover it if we can't get it done this year. Line 58, capital outlay for other. I had $20,000 in there. That will be to replace the roof on our garage out at 46th and Rosemar. It's our maintenance garage out there. That roof on that building is 20 plus years old, and we've had to do some repairs to it. Shingles coming loose, gutters falling off. So I'd like to go ahead and put 20,000 that to just replace the whole roof, gutters, fascias, everything on that building. That's the main building, not the little shelter up on top. Then down on line 59, capital outlay for equipment. We had 21,216 in there last year. That was where we purchased a lot of all the other air packs, things like that for the trucks. I did those on a rotating basis so they wouldn't all come due at once. Because those cylinders on those are only good for 15 years. So what I've done is that I've knock that down to just $7,000. That would be to buy one spare air pack, air cylinder in case we would have a damage in one or one would break, that we would have a spare one to put back on the truck. At that point, that's all I have on mine. The only other thing I'd like to say, I know in the past other presentations, they've said if there's any, thoughts of giving any raises out, I would like to have my 2 employees highly considered for that. Other than that, if there's any questions, I'll take what I can tonight. And my office is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, over at the fire station. Contact me there if there's any questions. Anything I can answer right now?
Steve, what is in that 46th Street garage? What do you guys keep in there?
Like I said, it's a maintenance garage. We can't get our fire trucks in it because it's too small. But that's where we do our maintenance for our trucks. We take them out there. The guys schedule it, and they do the oil changes out on the driveway. So it's just basic maintenance. There's a tool cage out there. We can pull our small utility vehicles in there and do the oil changes, maintenance on those. It's between maintenance and storage, there's nothing really out there other than just the tools and things to work on the vehicles with.
Do you see any, like, in the years to come, as far as I know you're great about keeping records of your trucks and stuff, what do you see in the future as far as the next couple of years? Are there any major purchases that need to be done as far as fire trucks or anything that?
Yes, in my 5 and 10 year plans, I've addressed that. Our oldest truck right now is a 2002. We try and schedule everything to be replaced on 20 years. Right now, that truck's in good enough shape where it's gonna last a little past that. Plus, due to the fact that we're still making payments on the 2016 Ariel that we bought new, and then the refurb that we did on the 95 platform truck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to hold off till those get paid for before I ask for any other vehicles, fire trucks, because you're going to be looking at, I'm just going to throw a wild figure, $650,000 to $850,000 for a fire truck at the current prices they are.
And
So that's why I thought we'd do it all after everything else is paid for.
And that's a 2002 you're talking about,
Yes.
that fire truck.
So it'll be
that's
over the
coming.
20-year range, but like I say, right now, and we're keeping the maintenance up on things like that. So it'll last us that long unless something catastrophic happens, but, we're doing good on it.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Tom.
How much longer do you have on, to pay off your truck?
Okay, Amy has that. I thought it was 22 or 23, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's close enough for political work.
Anything else while she's looking that up?
The one matures in August of '22.
Okay,
That's the first one. I'm not sure, I don't have the date.
Yeah.
One second. I'll get it for you.
22 to 24, something like that is the rough figure on those.
Anything else for Steve?
Okay, like I said, if you have any questions, I'm in my office during the day. Feel free to stop by or give me a call or whatever. If that's the case, I'm gonna go back to.
You can go to class.
Thank you all.
This is the budget for my office for this year. The only item that has changed on the budget is on the vehicle expense. Auto supplies down on line 43. It's been removed. I no longer drive a city vehicle. I drive my own truck. So I don't need that money in there for vehicle expenses. With that, everything else is exactly the same. Questions?
I'd like to say something real quick. I look at whether you like Mayor Rapper or the next mayor 10 years down the road, I look at the mayor's salary, and I know we gave you an increase whatever a couple of years ago, but I think about the mayor's salary in our city. It's like the 16th, 15th highest paid. It's kind of, I don't know how that got started, but I think about the mayor being the administrator of the city. And if we want to attract some good candidates when this term's up, or if you decide to run again or somebody else does, I really look at, I don't know how it all started, but the mayor being paid what you are as far as your responsibility. So I just want us as council to maybe look at that in the coming years, not this year obviously, but on year down the road, because I think about attracting the good quality candidates and what you pay for what you get, and I just think it's something in the future as council, we need to look at that.
Thank you for that. My salary's locked. I'm in for my entire term. It can't be
Right.
changed until the next term. And since you brought that up, Mike, I have to tell you all, when you start looking at salaries for the next term, I honestly think that you probably should take a look at the difference in the recorder salary and the council people salary. I think Melissa would agree with me. It's a tremendous amount of paperwork, and you're just getting started. And the longer it builds, the bigger the pile gets. And, if you kept track of how many hours you actually spend, it's quite a lot. So at any rate, when the next rotation comes around, that is one of the things that it should be addressed, okay? Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
I agree, we have a multi-million-dollar budget, and if it was a private enterprise and you had somebody running a business with the budget we had, they'd make much more than we pay. And I've been in held office for years, and people resent what any public officials make. They all think we make too much money. But I was in the legislature over a 25-year period. We got one raise in 25 years, but the raise we got was 33%, and they put that was the headline in the paper, that we got a 33% raise. But I agree with Mr. Ellen.
All right.
I just, one other interesting, if you watch the news, I think it was last night, they discussed Wood County Superintendent of Schools' salary. And if I remember, increase wasn't a big increase, but I think the number that sticks in my mind was $159,000. So 3 times, basically. So, yeah, I mean, full-time administrators that deliver good performance, so I can agree with what everybody's saying on this.
Okay.
And the recorder, too.
Okay. All right, next on the list tonight would be the recorder.
I have the council, city council budget also. Is that you or?
I have it.
Is that next? I had it on the council's next, but it's not.
I'll just do it when I do my others.
Okay.
Yeah, Randy, I've seen what the city recorder does firsthand. And gee, the Christmas.
What do you get drafted to help her, buddy?
No, I know, I
Proof
can't.
this, will you?
Yeah, Russ always reminds her of how I signed her up for this stuff, but yeesh.
I see what you did. I'll run for council.
Yeah.
Okay, I am not making a lot of changes, simply because this is my first term. I want to kind of see what is going to be applicable to me. Also, my predecessor was experienced from council and years being recorder, so she kind of had some things in her back pocket that I don't yet, training-wise. So for the most part, things are staying the same. I did just reduce a few things. Travel, I'm reducing that. We aren't really anticipating that would be something I would need, but just in case it's there, especially if I'm needing to travel for training or anything. Leaving, advertising the same, training the same. I know she didn't use it in 1920, but that may be something that I need to take advantage of. Amy has helped me remind myself what some of these things are for, but the audit costs, $15,000, that is something that we cannot reduce. Let's see here, for materials and supplies, $1,000 of that goes towards some project that I would want to designate it for. And the $3,500 also goes towards scanning the minute books, new minute books, paper for the books. Those things are a special order type thing. You know, we're not putting them in 3-ring binders. They're a special item. There we go. Okay. Sorry. Line 23, sorry. I'm gonna get this. Line 23 for professional services, let's see, $6,000. That would be for Walter Drain, updating and replacing the pages and stuff in the code book. So that's the scanning and that kind of stuff. And then we have other post-employment benefits, actuarial. That will also be a part of line 23. Everything else I pretty much kept the same, and I'll just take note of how I feel like I've utilized those funds throughout the year and make adjustments next year if I need to do that. Are there any questions?
Ask her a good lawyer question, Lee, to get her. Ask her something good.
I'll ask her a bad lawyer.
All right, thanks.
Good cop, bad cop here. Before we go up to the next presenter, I would like to make a comment to all of you that are here. She mentioned travel and training. Because of COVID, the Municipal League is not doing the normal trainings that they do. But if things get better, you know, through the summer and the end of the year, I would encourage each one of you to go to the training sessions that are held. They're really great. You get to meet a lot of people from all the other cities in West Virginia, and you find out how other people are doing things. And it's really a great experience to be part of that. So, you know, if we have to do a budget revision to put those things in, I would encourage each one of you to go if you get a chance, because, I mean, they're great to attend. So, all right. So, with that,
Oh.
Mr. Skogstad. Yes, sir, Tom.
Are they gonna, is the legislature gonna have the reception for municipal employees like they have in the past?
You know, to be honest with you, I don't know. I saw that, and they were talking about doing it virtually, which I think it wouldn't work as well as it has, you know. The day at the Capitol, which you always went to, you know, those are things that hopefully they'll get them going, but, you know, with the shutdown it is, I don't know.
I just wondered.
Yeah. Mr. Skogstad.
Thanks.
Good evening, folks. My name is Russ Skogstad. I'm the city attorney for the city of Vienna. I have been for the last, I guess we're coming up on 13 years now. My budget primarily stays the same. A handful of years ago, I carved out most of the things that either that, you know, the training and what have you that get paid for or I pay for as part of my other job. My salary line item 3 is the same. It's been the same since I think I started. The only line item that I'm actually going to change, and I did this after speaking with Amy, is line item number 23. That was a line item that I had, it's called professional services. A lot of that we had, I set aside that money in anticipation over a handful of years dealing with FOIAs and what have you. I'm reducing that from $15,000 to $10,000. If you'll look in 19 and 20, we actually spent about $3,600 in just that year on FOIA-related litigation. Everything else is essentially the same. The only number that's of any significance, I suppose, would be the materials and supplies. And that remains the same. I really don't spend that much except on me and, my salary. And so, there you go. Does anybody have any questions?
Are you doing the police judge?
I am not.
Okay.
Mike, our Chief Piper, usually does that.
He did it.
Oh, okay, I didn't see it on the list, okay.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Next up is Craig Metz. He'll do the health department, street department, and streetlights.
Yeah, I'll be doing 3 of the 6 departments that I manage out of Public Works. We'll start with the streets. I just went through 10. Like other departments, I am requesting a pay raise for my employees. We have, my opinion, we have the best employees in this valley. If you all seen last night, the snow removal, these guys started yesterday morning at 6 a.m., worked at 10 o'clock last night. Come back out at 4:30 this morning. We was out on the roads, working continuously until, it quit today at 4. And if you see the forecast for next week, Monday we'll be working probably 24 to 36-hour shifts with the snow forecast. So we have a great group of guys. We have guys from age of 18 to 76. Okay, there's 14 or 12 employees in the street department. So if you look what's being done out there within 12 employees, it's pretty impressive. So I hope you all consider pay raise for these guys. I know the police department offered $2 an hour. We would like to have the same. So that's it. So we'll go over the line items that I changed for this year. Line item 19. Hopefully you.
Craig, what are you starting with? 446, 445?
570, 19. Street department. You ready? 570, 19. Amy requested we put in $34,500, and that is for the future street sweeper. I hope you all approve next meeting or the meeting after that's coming to you that we bid out. That is a yearly payment on that. I think that is a 4-year or 5-year loan.
I figured a 4-year.
4-year loan on that. So we need it. The other one's broke, sitting in the scrapyard. We're still using it for parts, but it's no longer functional. So, like I said, we're just going to cover the highlights, the things that changed. If you look at 570.41, I increased that budget by $10,000 this year, but I'm asking to remove that because Steve Black did bid out the Christmas decorations, and that $10,000 was for that. So hopefully we can put it in this year's budget or for the budget revision, pay for the new Christmas decorations. So I'll go back down from 170 back down to 160, which has been that way for several years. And if you go over to line item 570.58, that is various street paving projects. I put $850,000 in for this year. We all know that the streets need to be repaired. Asphalt isn't getting any cheaper. I don't think it's going to be cheaper at all this year. I think the price is going to go up drastically with the oil crisis that's going on. So, yeah, $850,000. I'll probably do the same streets that I did 23 years ago with $60,000. So, 23 years ago when I started here, I paid $18 a ton for asphalt, and last year it was $96 a ton. So. The big item is, next item is 570.59, and you can see several vehicles that need replaced. When I started here, I've been working off a 10-year plan, 10-year rotation plan for vehicles. The ones that need replaced is Unit 96, which is rusted, the cab floors are gone. It was due to be replaced in 2013, so it's 8 years past due. The Ford SUV, Unit 31, that was also due to be replaced in 2013. It is in the scrapyard also. It has mechanical issues and broke down. We also have a Unit 17, a 3/4 ton pickup. That was due to be replaced in 2015, so that's 6 years past due. And that is actually sitting with a bad transmission in the scrapyard at my complex, 60th Street. So, and we have a skid steer concrete breaker. The current one we have is 19 years old. We rebuilt it, replaced the bits, but it's to the point now where the cylinder is bad and it's due to be replaced. It's no longer functional. You go to use it, it shoots hydraulic fluid everywhere. So,
Craig, that is an attachment. That is
It
not a
attachment
skid
for
steer.
Skid steer, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's just the attachment for the breaker. So, and we use that constantly when we're out doing street repairs. So that kind of finishes up the street side of my budget. You don't have any questions?
Craig, let me ask you, why do you, I know there's a reason behind it, but why do you pave some streets and blacktop the others? Is there,
Well, actually, I come to you all and look for recommendations.
all right,
Second, I don't always use your recommendations because I have to go out and look at the road and see the deterioration of it. There's a scale factor we use. If you look at a road and you see a lot of potholes, it doesn't really mean it's bad. It means we can fix it with cold patch or hot packs.
all right,
It has to do with alligator and base failures when we address the road. And then again, we address it with, if there's a base failure, we try to replace that road if it's in a high traveled area. I try to get the roads throughout the city. I don't favor one part of town or the other, but I do try to group them up as much as I can, okay? This year, hopefully we can bid out, in the springtime or next couple of weeks, we're gonna bid out hopefully $400,000 worth of roads. And then again in July, if you favor me with the budget, so.
so you always repeat blacktop on the ones that are blacktop now and cement the ones that are cement now, is that how you usually do
The
it?
cement we do in-house, that's what we bid out,
Okay.
okay?
And I commend you on your, because I know what you guys go through with your trucks and stuff. I know there's not a lot of miles on some of these things, but you guys work those things, travel the hills. So I know they don't last as long as a regular traveler personal car. But so I commend you and Steve Black and Steve Scholl. You guys keep records of your automobiles. So that's a good steward of what you got. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Next two are easy. Street lights, if y'all don't know what the street light project is or that budget is for maintenance and upkeep of our traffic signals. Okay. A lot of people think the state does that. I wish they would. But we are responsible for replacing every bulb in our traffic lights plus controllers. Which controls, what light comes on, how long. 12 years ago, the state come up and replaced our controllers for us and upgrade them, and we haven't had too much problem now of that, but we still have to buy the extra controllers and the electronics and the little, you guys, if you see the traffic signals, you see the silver box, aluminum box, that's all the computer software that's inside that, and we have to, upkeep that and make sure it's gonna run right. I know the police department really enjoys it when it runs right? So they don't like directing traffic, nor does the fire department, so. Any questions on that line item or budgets?
Craig, before you go to the next one, he mentioned the silver boxes that are on the traffic signals. I'm not sure how many years ago it was, 2 or 3 years. Every time we had a power outage, the lights were out of commission. That meant we had to get the police department and the fire department out there to direct traffic for hours. Craig went to each one of the locations, got generators wired in so that we can take these little portable generators. Every time we have a power outage and the lights are down, they take these generators out there, they hook the generators up, the lights are back on within just a few minutes, and then our police and fire do not have to be on standby directing traffic in danger of all that stuff. And so, Craig, a lot of things happen that no one notices, but I can tell you that was forward thinking right there. And I know that our police and fire department are very happy about that. And it works. That's
Works
the beauty
great.
of it. It does work.
Yeah. Next is your health department. It stayed the same. There's no changes on that.
Except I did make a change on the contribution line item, but they're coming next week to discuss that.
For the health department itself?
Yes.
Okay.
What is that? What is the health department line item for the city? I mean, I know what the county health department is, but what is this for us?
That's part of it, but my part of it, that part would be Amy, she handles that section, but my part is, health department is for your pesticides applications,
Okay.
okay, and trainings, you have to have certifications, which I carry to be able to spray like weed killer, kill bugs. The biggest thing a few years ago, one of the crises was, West Nile virus. It was for the killing mosquitoes, any kind of thing. This year it could be, hard to tell what it could be. Right now we're dealing with COVID, so we might skip me this year. I don't know. I hope it does. Did last year, so. But it's always, I've been here, like I said, 23 years, and I've dealt with 4 major crises, and, the Y2K, everybody remembers that. And then, we have the ratio, the C8, now it's the COVID. Threw a couple of West Nile viruses in there, and, we got the whole package, so. Any other questions on them budgets, or?
You had to bring up the deratio, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a great time, yeah.
I'm sure that most of these folks that are up here have no idea. When the deratio hit and we were out of power for 4 days, Craig slept in the back of his Suburban at one of the well sites to make sure that everything ran smoothly to keep the water going.
The only well
Is
site
that a
was-
fact?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it was a great time. And I tell you, I did sleep in the back truck, and I camp all the time, so I'm used to that. But I kind of miss that time because everybody's really friendly at that time. They come over and fed me really well. That's why I look like this now. So I had a good time. I love camping anyway, so that's a plus.
Questions for Craig?
Craig, what about, you're talking about, I look at all your, like I say, your sheet here that has all years to replace, like your 02 GMC Sierra, year to replace 2009. Is that something that, what do you guys use that for? I mean, like I say, that's really the oldest thing we have. Everything else is pretty much up to date. But
Well, that was actually, was my city vehicle at one time, and I transferred it down to the foreman's, and now it's a crew cab pickup, and it's still in pretty daggone shape. So we're gonna keep it. It does have some high mileage on it, but it runs well, and it doesn't have any rust issues. When the guys go on a big job and they need 4 guys in a truck, when we could at the time, they take that, so.
and you guys, as far as I know, you and Steve Black, you guys shared some equipment for a while. Do you guys have everything you need, or is there still sharing going on with certain equipment, or?
Yeah, this city is very fortunate with the departments that we have. I know Steve kind of touched on this last week, and the police chief did too. There is not a department that doesn't share their product with other departments. If police chief calls me, he needs something, we're there. He called me yesterday several times, the snow. If Park needs something equipment-wise, this past year they used our bobcatter quite a bit with the brush hog on it. If I need a tractor, I know where to go get one. Okay. Same with employees. We still share employees. Fire department, they need something, we're there. This whole everybody in the city, this city, you got to keep in mind. Everybody says, "Well, you need to run like a business." Like a business, we're not a business. We're a public service company. Okay, that's all we are. Okay, if we're here to serve the residents in this city, and we have to join forces to do that, and we do it very well. Okay.
I've seen that. Because I think about, when I run nursing homes, I think about, do you have the right equipment you need to do your job? That's one to make sure you guys have the right stuff. You're not having to rely on, if you guys both need a skid, something like that. I just want to make sure you guys have what you need to do to serve our city the best. I know I've got a couple calls. I never got calls the last 4 years about a street sweeper, but I know I've had a couple calls. People tell me about how bad our street sweeper is, so I'm glad to see that in the budget. But me as a councilman, I just want to make sure you guys have what you need, and it's okay.
Yeah, at this time, you can see the vehicle rotation. We try to stretch that out as much as we can. So, and if you look at that closely, you'll see 1 year we'll buy a couple pickup trucks, and next year we'll have to buy a dump truck with a salt spreader and stuff, and that's a high price item. We try to break that out where everything's equal through the next 10 years. Okay. So once you set that payment of, say, $34,500 a year, that payment should stay there that way for 10 years.
And just to inform the community, these trucks are for our city employees. They don't drive them back and forth. They're for work purposes only. And that's want to make sure, because people think, hey, they drive them home, they do this, but they don't do it. They're just for work.
The only vehicles that gets drove home is the on-call personnel. We have an on-call personnel in the water and in the sewer department, and they also work during the weekends. So they are allowed to take that vehicle home, because for the past year, we kind of drew that back, and we wasn't getting the response time to the residents that we needed to. Example, somebody call and say, hey, I got a sewer back in my basement. They really don't want to wait until we go up and the guy gets in his vehicle, drive up to our garage, gets in the city vehicle and drive back to that. Or same thing as a water leak. You got water shooting your house. You want somebody there pretty quick. So we allow them to take them vehicles home, but they do pay mileage on that vehicle also.
Okay.
Okay.
Craig, what year is the street sweeper that you referenced?
It's
Supposed to be replaced in 2016.
yeah. 07?
This
Yeah.
2008 Timeco, is that what it is?
Yeah, Timco. Yeah.
Timco.
Yeah.
2016, we're supposed
Yeah,
to be
unit
replaced. so-
16. It is an 08. Yeah, so it's 5 years past due. But
Mhm.
All right, Craig, thank you.
it's been a long night for me. I'm going to skip out on you
Yes,
guys
sir.
if you got any more questions. Again, I encourage every one of you all, some of you all have come to my office. Please come up. Let's take a tour. Mike, I'm still waiting for you so we can take a tour of the sewer plant.
Gosh,
Now you can bring your wife, and we can have a really good time.
he warned me about the
Oh,
sewer
you need a
plant.
trip to the pit, believe
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, don't wear high
Hey.
heels, but yeah, we'll get you in the sewer plant.
I'll take
or
you up on it.
the garage. Each and every one of you, please come up and we'll take a tour of our facility, because it's a nice complex, and
It is.
you can see what we actually do. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
All right,
See you
Thank
guys.
you, Craig.
Not great.
Next is Stephanie Brothman.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Brothman, the HR Director. And I will be presenting the budget for Human Resources first, number 422. As always, mine's going to be short and sweet. Line items 1 through 10, of course, is taken care of by the Finance Director. There's no other changes on that budget except for item 41, materials and supplies. And I'm asking for just $1,000 increase because I'm in need of some more fireproof storage, and just a 2-drawer fireproof cabinet would help me a lot with that. And they run about $900. Is there any questions about that? Okay, well, moving along then, I'm also going to present the newsletter budget, which is 431. Again, there are no changes whatsoever to that outside of line item 41, again, materials and supplies. Just asking for an additional $200 there for increased labor cost. The labor cost is for the SW Resources to produce, to print that type of stuff. Any questions? Great, well, as I said, mine's always short and sweet. However, I would like to address one other thing before I walk away. And that's the fact that you've been hearing all of our department heads mention, sorry, I didn't put down the newsletter paper, but it was short anyway. But all of our department heads have been asking for wage increases for their employees. And I'd like to back them up on that and say that there's just not a handful of our employees that deserve an increase. During this past year with the pandemic going on and stuff, our employees have really stepped forward, done an excellent job. And I'm not just saying that for their employees, because I haven't heard any of them, well, maybe a couple, talk about an increase for themselves. But I think we should have across-the-board increase for all the employees, laborers, administrative staff, as well as the department heads. And I'm speaking on, in addition to the 35% longevity increase. Okay? Thank you, and you all have a good evening.
Okay. So I have three additional departments to do. The first one is the festivals. Last year, we put a $5,000 line item in there because the Grand Central Mall wanted to do a 4th of July celebration. And so, because they're our largest retail area, we're going to partner with them and take some part in that program. Because of the COVID, we did not get to do that. And so we've extended it this year. Hopefully somewhere down the line, we'll get to do some sort of a celebration, whether it's 4th of July or not, I don't know. But I do know that the new stores are getting ready to open and the renovations down there. The tentative opening date is March 11th and March 13th. And there will be a grand opening for them on March the 20th. And they are stocking the stores as we speak. So it is moving rapidly towards us. So that's what the festival is. $905 is the senior center. Amy takes care of the first 1 through 10 items. This year, because Councilman Rogers is not here anymore, we're going to have to hire a part-time person to open and close the senior center. The hours will be 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, and then evening hours on Friday for events like movies and what have you. That person will be a part-time employee working 29 hours with no benefits. It will be $9.75 an hour, and that will add an additional $15,827 to the budget. And so that is the item that Amy will have to figure in when she does the 1 through 10. As you go down the list, line item 14, which is travel, has been reduced by $1,900. 15, which is maintenance, building and grounds, has been reduced by $24,000. All of the renovations were done or will be done to the senior center, and so that line item has been reduced. Training and education on line item 21 has been raised from $600 to $1,500. That's for certification costs for the instructors that are over there. And the contract services has been increased from $5,000 to $10,000. That is to make an allowance for the sanitation and the COVID spraying that is occurring over there because they are seniors. We're going to increase the spraying to make sure that we keep that to a minimum for exposure. And that is all the changes in the senior center budget for this year. Questions on that? Tom?
This part-time person you're gonna hire, $9.75. I read the job description, and they have to be proficient in CPR, AED, first aid. They're gonna be giving up probably the best evening of the week. If that was on a 40-hour, $9.75, if you're gonna pay that for a 40-hour week, that'd be less than $20,000 annually. I think the job's worth more than that, at least $11 or $12 an hour. I mean, I think, one of the things I think you'll have a problem with is turnover. I mean, people, that's just not very much money, I don't think.
Well,
The responsibility when you're giving people CPR and all that jazz.
okay. We always have the opportunity to revisit this, Tom, once we start to balance the budget. But there's a couple things that I do need to point out to you all. The dispatchers that we have over in the police department make $8.75. And they're the ones that are there all hours of the night and day answering the phones and taking care of those kind of things. And the other thing is, when we hire employees to come in as regular maintenance workers, they start at what, Steph, 11?
Our clerical staff starts at, 11:68.
11.
Laborers who are down in your sewers and everything else start out at 11:89.
So, I just want you to keep that in context when you do this, because this is a part-time job that basically will open and close the center. I'm not opposed to it. We had to start with a number somewhere. But it's just, you can't go too high on this thing and not consider the fact that we bring in a lot of other employees that do a lot more work for barely, much more money than that, so.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, if I can, I'd like to also mention as far as the CPR and AED classes, we're actually doing training, in-house on that next week for our police officers and some of our clerical staff too. And again, they're only making maybe $11 an hour, some of them, 11.89.
But if you feel more comfortable, Tom, with a different number, please give it to me. I'll present it to Amy. She can run the numbers and we'll figure out what it is.
Well, I'd say,
I would ask you to come and talk to me as well, Tom. I'm sorry I interrupted, but I would ask that you would come and talk to me as well and go over that job description with me.
okay, at the risk of sounding sarcastic, because we underpay other people doesn't mean we should underpay her. I admit that people that work at the police department should get more than they're getting. But, somebody's, but have the training and the sacrifice, I think it should be a little more.
Okay, I mean, just tell me what you're thinking, Tom, and we'll run the numbers, okay?
11.
You want to run at 11, okay, all right, we'll get those. All right, what else?
I would just want to touch on what he's saying, because I agree 100% with what you're saying. And respectfully, if we're going to talk about people who maybe work for us full-time in the sewer department or whatever, and that's a low wage to crawl down in the sewer, I get that. But there's also a market value to their insurance and to the retirement, and this person is not going to be exposed to that. The city is not exposed to that whole entire package, just the $9.75 or 11, whatever it is that we settle on. So, I mean, I think if you hire somebody for $9.75 an hour, you get a $9.75 an hour person, and what you get is this, okay? And I don't think anybody's really gonna be happy with that. And I think I need a little bit of backstory about why the senior center is a city-operated thing. The city made a decision to put the senior center together, and it's a wonderful senior center, offers great programming. And so I don't understand, in the past, what was just done was Mr. Rogers and maybe a couple volunteers, they handled that?
Correct.
Okay, so that's not something that's available now. So we really do need to consider this and that we have to have this position.
Well, at this time, Kim, it's kind of a unique situation because a lot of the traditional members that have been over there have passed on.
Right.
And so because of that, and because we haven't been open for, 10 months now, we don't really know what's going to happen. There may be a younger crowd that steps up and says, hey, I've got time, I'll come and I'll do it, Mondays and Wednesdays or whatever. Right now, we don't have that structure. And, for 5 years or longer, Bruce Rogers was there every day. And so we just don't know where we're at, but I do know that when we get ready to reopen, that we need somebody there because you can't leave that facility open with no
Right.
supervision.
So-
And as you all mentioned, with the AED and what have you, we need someone there in case of an emergency that we can get some help there in a hurry.
Right, so I don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think what I'm trying to say is, I think that the city should always have somebody there, and we shouldn't rely on volunteers. Volunteers are nice, and they could be kind of somebody that is extra, but I think that responsibility of staffing that facility lies on the city. And, so, once again, I agree that the wage needs to be higher. I also had another question about that, because on the sheet that I have, and maybe I misunderstood what you said, there were some additional instructors. Is that still in the budget?
It is not, and they weren't instructors. There was an additional person in there to take care of the newsletter, and Stephanie has done it for years. And so Stephanie will do that. That's part of what the other part of it was in there. The additional money that's been in the budget for I don't know how many years is a salary for the instructors that we have. Okay, so it's not it's not an increase. When Amy finally works the number up on line 3, that number will be included in that. So yes, we do pay the instructors.
Okay, because in my, I guess for lack of a better word, this is kind of an executive summary. It just says, class instructors, 24,000.
Yes,
So that's why I was
but
confused.
that will be in that number when it finally gets to the budget, all right?
Okay.
That's not an increase, that is a number that's standard.
Yes, that is the same amount it was last year.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, and just one other comment. This is a big concern of mine too. Back to the person who will be the staff member over there. That I did read this summary, and one of the duties, the daily operations of this person will be to sanitize and maintain COVID restrictions. And I mean, the vaccines are on the horizon, and hopefully we're heading in a different place with that. But I think that that's very important that we maintain that. So I do stress that we need to pay for that. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't want to keep repeating. I know we got a lot to do tonight, but I like the $11 an hour idea. And I'm glad we're doing this because I think with our city, you guys know I love sports. I'm pushing that. And we've got a great senior center. And I think it's time to even capitalize it more. If we have someone, a social worker or somebody, somebody qualified to do this and really put their heart into it, I really think the senior citizens, it's a great place, and it's something we can expand on along with the youth sports. I always keep plugging.
okay, we'll
Cool.
take your considerations in and adjust the numbers.
Thank you.
Okay, the last one that I have is Civic Promotions. Starting with line item 19, there's a slight decrease right there. There are a couple events that have been utilized in the past that she's going to try some different things this year, depending on what, the COVID situation will allow. So you will see a difference in a couple of the family events. The professional services, when you go down through there, the professional services, that is for the events again. It's $8,400 is what has been budgeted. And that includes a multitude of items that are in here. That includes the bands, the sound stage for the events, the sounds and lights, the items that are required for the dog fest, for the other dog events that we do at the large and small dog park, and for shredding day. We do that at the pool parking lot, and those items total up $8,400, and that's for the rental of the equipment and the people that run those things. Contract services has been reduced. That is for the events that we use where we have the snow biz machine where the kids get free snow cones, and that is $400 for 6 events, and so that's where the $2,400 for contract services comes. Everything else on that is the same. The one item that is on the list that you all have was down where they, under capital outlay, there was a request for an automobile in there, and that has been removed from the budget. So the $25,000 that was requested is not there anymore. We have a situation where a year ago that we had a donation of a very nice automobile, and it was to be dedicated to the senior center. And unfortunately, that automobile does not fit any of the needs that Linda has when she takes care of all of her events. She needs an SUV or something of that size so that the back seats can be put down and she can carry all the totes and all the stuff that she has. So we're going to try to work something out with the donation that we had and hopefully find a used SUV that we can get for her. In the meantime, we have a ton of city trucks and what have you that are both in the Parks Department, and those are the fellows that typically haul and set up all of the equipment that she uses, and so we will work with them to make sure that the equipment gets delivered. But in the meantime, we're going to try to find a way to repurpose that car that we have, because the car sits almost all the time. And it's a shame. It's a beautiful little car, but
How much is that car worth? I mean, what is it, like what year and
it
what?
is a 2014, I believe, Toyota Corolla.
So
But
you
it's a
think,
beautiful car.
so the 25,000 is kind of equivalent to what you think you'll get?
I have no idea.
I don't know how much.
I have no
I
idea.
would
That's
get
one of
out
those
of it.
things where, because it's in such terrific shape with extremely low mileage, we're gonna have to reach out to somebody and say, okay, what's this car worth?
Is that something that we need to just look at putting on state, like the bid, like the gov deals kind of thing?
Maybe.
Cool.
Okay, if we did, we'd have to put a reserve on it, because like I say, this car's in pristine shape. But at any rate, we're gonna work on that. I'll be back with some information on that, because right now, we just don't know what the car's worth. You know, I'll reach out to the Toyota guys and say, hey, take a look at this and give us a ballpark guess on the thing, because it is extremely nice.
So I have a question about that. I think this is a process question then. Because you say, oh, we're going to work this out. Well, how does that work out in terms of the budget? Since we don't have a solid plan, or can this be worked out before the budget's completed? In other words, what I'm trying to get at is I really think that she does need that SUV. I've done a million events, and I know how hard it is to, stuff in and out, and to be able to keep things in your car permanently, et cetera. So I just don't want to see this pass by without a solid plan of what we're going to do. So maybe you can explain that process to me, because I don't understand.
I don't have the information at this time.
Okay.
I have no idea what that little car's worth. Okay? I don't believe it'll be worth $25,000, but I don't know that. I don't have any Toyotas, so I don't know that. And so at this point, I'm not going to speculate on what the process will be. I'm simply going to gather some information about what this thing's worth. I know that we can get a reasonably good low mileage SUV for about $25,000. And so depending on what the car's worth, at that point I would come back to council, because it's obviously going to be a capital expenditure, and say, that car's worth $18,000 and we need to get one for 25. And so we would come back and say, okay, we want to do a budget revision, or You can put money in the budget now and say, okay, I'm gonna set $10,000 aside to pay the difference on this car so she gets an SUV. You know, that's entirely up to you. I'll fix the numbers any way you want them.
Yeah,
It's just, I don't know what the car's worth, and that's the whole key to it.
sure, I get what you're saying, that's why I asked the question. I think you had a good idea if you want to go ahead and prepare the bucket, you know, and say $10,000 or whatever, however that works out. And I understand the difficulty of not knowing what this other car's worth and everything that you have to do there. I just didn't know the process to make sure that this happens.
Well, we have 30 more days before we'll get to
Okay.
vote on the budget. It can be amended clear up until the final vote.
Okay.
I should have the numbers that you need before we ever get down to it. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's the direction that, it's pointless to let that little car sit over there.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, it was under a carport for its entire life, and, you know, it's a beautiful car. And so, we're not gonna use the car, she just doesn't have any need for it. And as far as I know, there's not another department in the city that needs a automobile like that. You know, we just don't have departments that need that, so, but I'll do the legwork on this thing, and we'll figure out what to do, and then we'll come back for the numbers.
Thank you, Mayor, that seems like a really good solution.
Okay? Jack Mathers.
Okay, for beautification, if you look, it's the exact same budget that we had in 2021. We presented the same budget in 21-22. Everything pretty much stayed the same cost-wise for what our planners are gonna be for Grand Central Avenue and the project that we just bid out. The only thing that we did, the reason that it's the same amount, all the projects are the same. This project that we had looked at doing at 30th Street, that you all have the drawing of, 30th Street and Grand Central, was actually in the 2021 budget when we came to this spring, and we wanted to do that. A lot of the people were unavailable. People couldn't get workforces because they were being paid to basically not to be working. So I went ahead. I think we're still going to be fine. My budget for this year is running a little bit close right now because we had a drought back in June, July, August, and September. I think I will have the money still in this budget to do this project. I'm going to look at it again as we get closer. But I went ahead and included it into the budget in case we didn't have it, then we would look at doing it back in the fall. So that number that you see, the $67,700 at the bottom, could roughly end up being $8,000 to $10,000 less if we do that project right there. So if you want me to, I will, because it's pretty extensive. People don't realize how much the planners, how much we really do in the city. I'm just going to read it to you very quickly so you know. We do the Blue Star Memorial and the bus stop island, planners down by Hall's Chocolate, the median beds in the center, there's 17 of those. We do the senior citizen building, the flower beds, the 60th Street median planner, the city of the electronic sign at Kmart. We do the tennis court planners. We do the 3 beds on Rosemar Road, 2 at Jackson, 1 at the McDonough Wildlife Refuge. We also do Lake Betsy planner, the Jackson Park entry bed, the parks office trailer. We do some planners there, the city building, 29th Street. We do that. Flower boxes, which are the brown boxes you see sitting on Grand Central Avenue that we do the planners, we do 17 of those. The hanging baskets, we do 52 of those. So 28th Street, Spencer Park gazebo, the Gold Star Memorial, and the Lake Betsy planner. So it's pretty extensive, the amount of plannings that we do. Like I was talking at our last tree and beautification meetings, they estimate that you basically get 7 seconds. People form an opinion about things within a 7-second period. And I tell you, I think as you drive through the city of Vienna, as you drive up Grand Central,
I think Grand Central tells you a lot by what we do, the projects that we do. I think it tells you a lot about the health of the city. You know, I really believe it does. I think that businesses, and I know, businesses have said to us, Vienna's a very easy place to sell because we can drive people up through and they can see the progress and the projects that are being done. So, any questions with that?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say thank you, and thanks for all the people who volunteer, because I do go to your meetings and I enjoy them tremendously, actually. They're just a great group of people, and they do a lot of really good work for the city. And I agree with you 100%. When you, as a city, when we show we're invested in our city, and this shows investment in our city, it makes people want to invest with us. So I 100% agree. My question was about line 68, all contributions $5,000, and I know in last year's budget that was Friends of Vienna.
Yes, it still is this year too.
So we seeded them 5,000 last year, and then we're going to consider seeding them 5,000 this year.
Right, true.
Okay, so my question is about that. I know it's hard to get a 501c3 off the ground and to get partnerships, and it just seems like that's a lot of seed money, but maybe not. But
a little bit over a year ago, I stood here before the council and I said, you know, it's time for Vienna to start a Friends of Vienna. I said, I think it's perfect timing. I didn't know a pandemic, you know, was going to hit. It really hindered us. But the other thing it let us do as a group is back up and lay a base and lay a foundation, and we did. And we brought in some social media people that we hired, that we brought in, that we're working on the website. We're working on Facebook development. We're also working on how memberships, how we're going to recruit people, how can they come in? Can they use PayPal? Can they use their credit card? So there's been a lot done there. We haven't been able, we're getting ready to have the kickoff, probably going to be in a month, and we'll start generating some money that way. Believe me, we want to. We're looking at doing some adoptions of some of the stuff here to start generating money, but it just takes a little bit to get it.
It does
to get it started.
to lay that foundation. Well, I think that the idea of the Friends of Vienna has great potential. You weren't here last week when Steve presented, but you know, maybe a Christmas light program sponsorship, definitely can see something like that. And so down the road, I think it's a good thing.
Well, and the Friends, that's one of the things we actually have a project that we're going to be kicking off. I'm not going to tell you the name and go into it a lot, but it does involve that project right there. And we've got some other things that we're getting ready to kick off. So there's really some neat things that have been developed. It's been a little bit slow, but it's ready to go in gear. But I think too, by going slow, we did our due diligence, and I think we're actually developing a professional program.
Yeah.
You know, I really believe that, and I hope so. There's nothing more that I want than not to have to rely on the city for stuff. And I really want the community, and I want, you know, individuals, I want businesses to be able to make a contribution to join in and feel a part of the whole thing. I mean, it's what community is about, you know.
I'm ready to join, so.
We'll be getting you.
Thank you, Jack.
Next is the tree commission side of everything. The budget actually reduced. If you look contract services, I'm paid out of that $14,400, $21,000 for tree care, which includes tree planting, tree removals, tree prunings. The total contract services $35,650. Materials and supplies, you see $2,500. Last year, we on the median trees on Grand Central, we went ahead and had all the trees mulched down through. They cut the edges in, they herbicide in and around the trees, and I thought, you know, it makes a nice presentation coming into the city. Down under contributions, grants, you see Trek Vienna and grant matchers, $20,000 there. There's a project that we've got going on that will probably be coming, I know will be coming back up in another budget, another meeting here, another council meeting. But starting after next July, there's going to be another grant available to me from the state of West Virginia. I'll be applying for that. It'll be a 50-50 grant that can be used for any things. It might end up being used also in the Truck Vienna project. But hopefully with the budget revisions we'll be doing, and we'll be moving on to Truck Vienna, getting that started and developed, then out of this budget would be some of the final things that'll wrap that whole project up. So the budget actually reduced from 66 down to $58,000. So, any questions, please? I would like to say one thing, and Kim, thank you for mentioning it, is we have a board, and you all, anybody's invited to our meetings when we have them, but it's fun to work with the board members that we have, because they're so involved. They will come to a meeting, and then a few hours after the meeting, I will get a text from members of the board saying, hey, we talked about this, I'm going to go ahead and look into it, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And there's just really a lot going on, and it's really a great group of people, and I think they're enjoying themselves. So
I agree.
anyway, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Our final presentation this evening will be by Amy Roberts.
The first line item is the Treasurer's Department. There's no change in this department. If you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. The bank charges or credit card fees that the city absorbs for people who pay their utility bills online. Do you have any questions about the treasurers
So how many people work in that department?
that get paid out of this line item?
Yes.
2 full-time and a part-time.
Okay.
2 full-time with benefits and 1 part-time.
No benefits.
No benefits.
Okay. Thank you.
The next line item is city council. I went ahead and did this year. There were no changes in this. If you all would like to make any changes, I'd be more than happy to do that. Everything's staying the same. Our grant writer gets paid out of this. Materials and supplies is $1,000 for each one of you to use towards a project of your choice. This year that we're currently in, just be advised if you're new, some of that may have already been spent by the last person that went out of office, so you need to check with me to see if it's still available. We did remove the Manville funding because we expect to have that completed by the end of this year.
Okay, I have a question.
Mhm.
You finished. Okay, so we did remove the Manville, the
Yes.
Spencer's Landing funding. Are we gonna put money aside for the FLAP grant? I think there was I don't remember now exactly what the,
Some sort of match.
yeah, it was, in my mind, it runs like 60,000, but I may be completely wrong.
It was 80-20 and the application was for 350,000.
I asked our elected officials what they wanted in that line item, and they told me 0, so.
Okay, because, I mean, I know at the last, last meeting or the meeting before that, we had talked about Spencer's Landing and community input, et cetera, of, was there gonna be were we gonna put any money aside in case the community wanted to start something? I don't, personally, in my opinion, I think we kinda need a master plan before we go in there and do something, but that's not even relevant at this point. It's just that, are we gonna leave money in the budget to do anything?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so in this budget year, we allocated $100,000 primarily to continue to remediate and finish the Manville project. I think we are about 80,000 of that remains, Amy, is my
Right now,
ballpark.
yes. Mhm.
The proposal that we received to finish this to get to the certificate of completion, we received, and again, it's their estimate, it can vary, is 17.5. So if all of that goes well, then I think what would happen is that we would end up with some unencumbered funds from that line item, which then we could, look toward, carrying forward, for example, into some type of a project that may benefit down there. I don't know, and Mayor, I don't think we do know what kind of timeline we're talking about with regard to the flap grant. How long that's gonna take, but, and when you talk about like, not doing a piecemeal, having kind of an overall plan for that, I think it's also, has some bearing on, you get some, some idea of how people are responding. Like that, because I thought the flap grant was fantastic. When we had the opportunity for that, it's a great way to start, low cost to the city, see what kind of interest we get. It's not a big impact to the property, the way they were talking about the location of it, putting it at the north end. So I think all of those, number one is get it closed, and then hopefully we're gonna have some of that money that had been allocated that might be carried over, and as we see where we go forward. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. There's some, a significant money, hopefully, that will be left over from that. I did have, another question about this before we move on.
Sure.
It's under, let's see, line 6, retirement expense. And since I'm new, I did get a packet, where me, as a elected official, is allowed to join the retirement program here that's for the city employees. And I have to ask myself why. I don't understand why we do this. It's 9%, which is extremely generous. But I don't work for the city. I work for the voters.
I mean, I can tell you that several years ago, it came before city council because that's what the city council at the time wanted. And the city council voted that be available to elected officials.
Okay, so
that's how the plan is written.
okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, what's next?
But you can choose to not do it. Some choose to
Yeah.
do it, some choose to not do it.
I don't
so-
do it. I would never do it because I take care of my retirement.
Is that all for that line item?
Yes, thank you.
We'll move on to city auditor. This is no changes in this line item. Right now, we have it's one employee who is out with, a serious illness that's still in this line item. And I have had somebody part-time, a couple of weeks coming in to help me out. That's coming out of here. Part-time, no benefits. The next line item is purchasing. We have a purchasing agent. She is paid out of this fund. Some of the, part of the group insurance is, some of these group insurance accounts also have to cover, just coming forward when I fill in those numbers, they also have to cover retirees. Because if we have a retiree, the city pays 50% of their Medicare supplement, which isn't a big number, but it has to be budgeted, obviously. Other than that, there is no change to this account.
So, my question about the retiree 50%, Is that, an older retirement program? Are you on, I'm confused about the retirement program because,
The retirement program. The
yes,
retirement program. Our
Yes.
employee retirement
Right.
program?
yes.
Okay.
So the only program that we have in place is the thing that United Bank is the custodian of?
Yeah, I mean, it's really run by, Empower, but yeah,
Yeah,
United
you can
Bank
pick your
is-
fund, et
sure.
cetera. So
Mhm.
that's the retirement program?
That is our employee retirement. We are not part of the state plan.
Right, okay.
Yes.
And so, am I correct that it's 9% for employees?
Yes,
And then are the employees required to do a match?
they are not required to.
Okay,
They can.
up to,
I think they can put in whatever they want.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you've got a cap, it's based on federal,
Mhm.
I think is
Yeah, and we also
15,000.
have a different plan. We have a 457 deferred comp plan that our employees can contribute to. That is solely employee contributions and not city contributions. So a lot of employees have chosen that route to make their contributions. Next is recycling. Recycling is passed through. We collect it, we send it out. The rates went up a couple years ago and they really needed to be reflected in the budget, even though it's an in and an out. You still have to adjust it up when the rates go up. The $5,000 in materials and supplies is just there in case we need to buy recycling bins.
Can you explain this one to me just a little bit more? So we pay to have them pick up our recycling, and we're not getting anything
No,
back for it.
no.
It's just a pure expense.
It's a state law. It's a state law that we had to provide curbside recycling.
Really?
Yes, we tried to
Wow.
take it off our utility bills several years ago. We got big trouble. So we put it back on. Put it out for bid.
Every city that has more than
There-
10,000 residents is
You have to
required
do
to
it.
have a recycling program.
Wow.
And, I mean, you can have it however you wanna run the program. The city has chosen because it's the most convenient for the citizens and because it,
No, but I thought it had to be a curbside recycling program.
I think there are different, I don't know that you have
Okay.
to be curbside.
I don't think so.
Changed
I
since
don't
then.
think it has to be curbside.
Really?
I haven't looked at it, so I don't wanna call anything.
Thank you.
But I haven't looked at it in a while, but you have a recycling program, the one that we've elected to is to do curbside with the trash. We have to get it out. Well, I mean, I suppose we could hire our own garbage workers sanitation workers to run it. We have to have a recycling program. What flavor it is up to the city, at least the last time I checked the statute.
Any more questions about recycling? Obviously, I'm not up on that. City Hall is the next line item. There's one change in City Hall. If you look at line item 15, maintenance of buildings and grounds, there was an additional amount of money put in there. There are drawings. This building has a lot of problems, and that is to fix the problems on the outside of the building. I believe the mayor could probably speak to that a little bit more than I could.
We had the building inspected, and you'll notice in all the photos that are attached to this, the various areas of the city, because of the exterior of this building, if you don't maintain the cracks that are in there, then the integrity of the surface itself allows water to get in it. And then, when the water gets behind the foam that's there, that's when you run into real problems. So it's been a number of years since anything's been done to this building. And so when you look at those pictures, you can tell where all the items of concern are. Obviously, this would have to go out for bid. but the estimate that we got was $55,200. And so, that needs to be done before it gets any worse than it is. And that's where that came from.
Somewhere we need to find room to plug in for some heat in this building as well.
Bigger furnace?
I agree.
Do you have any other
Jeez.
questions?
I do.
about
Good
that?
Lord.
I do, okay. Contract services. Can you
That's our
kind
cleaning.
just cleaning only? Okay, so here's a mystery. This is, I've been asked this question I don't know how many times, and I don't know the answer for it, but inquiring minds want to know. Coffee service, where does that come out of, and how much do we pay for that?
I'd have to get you that answer. I don't believe it comes out of contracted service. More than likely, it's coming out of materials and supplies,
Okay,
and I don't even,
okay, I'll just email you, and we'll just,
I'd have to, yeah.
thank you.
What service did you say?
Coffee service?
Coffee?
Coffee service?
I don't drink coffee, so I don't have a.
Apparently, we have a coffee service, and so some folks had been asking me about that, and I don't have the answer. And I've seen the truck, I walk my dogs by here, and I see it, but I don't know anything about it.
Stop by and have a drink.
The next line item is contingencies, which is remaining the same. We seem to be able to hold ourselves within that amount every year, so.
But before you leave the podium, I do have a question, and I
Sure.
think this is maybe a process question. So, as I was looking at the budget, it's, this is just kind of like our first pass at it,
Sure.
right? Because you have not been able to supply us any on the revenue side. And I
Also,
understand.
the next thing is the, outside agencies will come forward. Within that next week, I'll prepare a full document, revenues, expenses, a full document that you'll receive. You'll receive a work paper that shows all the capital requests. You'll receive a work paper that shows all of the salary requests,
Okay.
and really anything else you'd like for me to put together.
Okay, so we can communicate with you if,
Sure.
okay. So on the salary request, we do have to do the 35% longevity, right? I understand
It's
that.
by ordinance, so.
Right, that's what I thought. And so, I know there's been discussion of other departments needing stuff, and so we'll see about that. But that'll be kind of, that document's gonna start to form by the
Yes.
next time. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Amy, when we do like the contract services, like for the cleaning or whatever, is that year to year that we do contracts with, like?
Oh, Russ, what did we
How
sign
is
up
that?
for? Is that 3 years with an
Yeah.
additional one?
Typically, what we do with our services, because you're not allowed to burden the treasury from the next year, we do series of options. I haven't looked at the contract one. I haven't looked at the recycling to see how we've set it up. I haven't looked at it since the last time we set it up, and I can't remember.
I think
But-
recycling, we're in our 3rd year, and they have an option for an additional
Yeah,
year, 2 years, but it's year by year.
yeah,
So they have 3 years and then 1 and 1,
right. There are some.
if everything's going well.
Yeah, but there are some things that you can set up for terms of periods than we do or for terms of periods of time. We have outs in our, most of our agreements for year to year. It depends on the service agreement and the provider, but typically we do most of our service agreements on a year-to-year basis unless there's some other reason to not do that. And one is to lock in a price for a period of time, if we think that's beneficial to the city.
So we bid it out, it comes through budget and finance, and then comes to council. to
Yeah,
vote on.
typically, there's for lack of a better term, a request for professional services. You spec out you need a service. You need service X. You look at all of the things for service X. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Primarily, you look for a service, you have a description of the service, you send out or solicit people, you do interviews, or people or businesses, you do interviews. The results of that goes to budget and finance, and then they make recommendations based on that. But first, you have to find people that are qualified, and then you talk about price.
We've had quite a bit of extra cleaning this year. that, really in the future, I'm going to have to bring forth a budget revision because they've been fogging and, you know, disinfecting, a lot of the buildings. I was just waiting to do it all at one time.
And Amy, I'll get with you individually, because I like to see up to date, like on these budgets, how much we've spent so far. I know you keep a great record, you have to, but yes, I'll
and I
get with
mean,
you
this-
privately.
I can tell you, this year has been a little odd because we did basically tell department heads, you know, to be as conservative in their spending as possible. And they did, you know, they did adhere to that, and they have done a great job. So I think if you look, it's a little bit misleading, I think, and when you look at the end of, you know, last year and then going into this year, because, for example, we would have already had the streets bid out and, you know, and had that going. But since we didn't know how the revenues were going to flow, you know, we asked them to hold off on those type of things, and we're really just starting to get back into that.
I think it's a reflective of also the budgets they presented this year. I mean, it's not a wish list. I think there are legitimate needs and there's evidence of what they need, and they've done a great job presenting. So I think it was a well done. I know we still have a ways to go, but the initial process, I think it went very well.
I just want to add a comment to what he just said. I want to thank you for emailing me that detailed list, because if you look at that, it's going to tell you where we are in the budget, what's been encumbered. And I love at the very end, the last number that kind of gives you a percentage of where you are. So if you are, right, you know what I mean? You know if you're on target, not on target, et cetera. And I just find that document to be just
Sure.
so
Now,
amazing.
sometimes it's a bit misleading because things maybe came due in September, and you don't make another payment on them until next September.
Right.
So it could show it's at 90%
Right.
in February. So while it is a good document, there are always, you know, some things that.
Right, I think that, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think people can get concerned because you may, on the revenue side, it may say, you know, you really haven't gotten any revenue because, for example, 1% sales tax that's gonna come in quarterly, and it's gonna be significant. This last time, as I mentioned, was $911,000. I mean, so it can make, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can get scary, I guess.
Sure, yes.
Anything else for Amy? All right, Amy, thank you.
Sure.
That concludes our agenda for this evening. We move on to council comments.
I have just a couple things, Mayor. So one of the things that, as we're talking about coming in and hopefully out of COVID, in and hopefully out of Manville, we see a lot of property in Vienna that's vacant. We also see a lot of development, economic development outside of Vienna. You know, when Paul Thornton retired, we didn't fill that position. So part of what I want to talk about is this economic development effort. But the other thing is, with respect to the promotion of the city, you know, we have everybody's talked tonight about different people who are making different effort to promote different things about the city. We've got Stephanie doing the newsletter. There's things with the senior center. We've got issues with recruiting police officers. We've got, you know, efforts to promote people relocating to this area, and Steve talking about everything we have to offer with the parks. And it just seems to me that in this budget process, maybe we could have a conversation about some type of a position that kind of combines that effort toward the economic development overall, promoting everything that Vienna has to offer, in addition to a marketing effort that's more cohesive in terms of, you know, this it's not just, you know, go to a business meeting and see if we can get somebody invested in Manville or something like that, but also to round out and deliver that value to the city. That they are also responsible to pull together this image. And it's like we talked about, you know, tree and beautification and the 7 seconds that Jack talked about, that people come through. Well, you can represent that virtually too. And you know, and we have a new website, and You know, and I don't know exactly, I mean, I assume that was largely developed by Chris. And so, you know, but, so anyway, so that's just one thing, that I think that there should be, you know, a combination of that promotion of Vienna, which includes economic development, cohesive promotion of our city, and everything that we have to offer. So I'd like to see that added as a potential consideration for a position in Vienna. And then that leads me into the other point I want to make tonight. You know, we had the conversation about the attendant for the senior center. The chief's, you know, recommendation that we increase to $10, the part-timers that we have, and then Stephanie talking about the parity of, you know, and then we had the conversation about the pension plan. We have a pension plan for city employees. There's a separate pension plan for the police department. So that's something that I'd kind of like to get together with a couple of people maybe and look at, you know, the overall parity and internal consistency that we have in the city with respect, because everybody's talked about, you know, every department head that's gotten up has talked about the contribution their employees are made. You know, Craig's saying, you know, we're a public service company, and I really subscribe to that. You know, and so retaining people, everybody knows, you know, we don't want turnover, as Tom said. You know, we want to offer competitive positions where we get long tenured employees. And I think, Stephanie, you also said that, you know, that with respect to the CPR and the AED and that training, we can provide that to that employee, correct? I mean, we can get somebody trained for that with the senior center. And of course, the senior center is beside the fire department, the police department, so we've got additional resources available to help with that. So those are just, that economic development position, I think is really important to the city. And then also maybe taking the 10,000-foot view on that we make sure we do have. And I'm willing to participate if anybody else wants to maybe get a couple of people together and talk about that. I'd like to do that.
Okay. All right. The next special council meeting will be next Thursday, February the 18th. As Amy said, we will have all of our outside agencies here to make their presentations. The following regular council meeting will be on February the 25th, and we will go back to normal business and see what we have there, and we continue to work on the budget. We've got a long road ahead of us. So with that, meeting adjourned.